Welcome to the Courier 13 podcast. Our goal with this show is to present conversations among filmmakers that impart knowledge and inspiration to people who are currently making cinematic content, or for those who aspire to make movies and television but don't have the know-how yet to start, or for people who are just fascinated by the filmmaking process and the entertainment industry. Our guest today is voice actress Pilar Uribe. All right. Hello, Pilar. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Daniela said, texted me this week and was like, yo, I got a really cool guest for the podcast. I'm like, who is it? I'm like, it's Pilar. She's very famous voiceover actress. And I thought, wow, that's cool. We haven't had a voice actress on. And so this is a really cool honor for us. So yeah, no, this is amazing.
Well, thank you. I don't know about famous, but it's it is what it is.
Yes, no. I mean, Daniela, do you where did you learn about Pilar? I'm actually really curious about that.
So, this past semester, I was writing a spec script in my writing class, and then she would come in and read. Sometimes we did like a table write kind of thing, or like a for our spec scripts, and she would come in and she would read my classmates, and then mine was the last script to go, but yeah, she just came in and she did a really good job on reading our spec scripts and stuff. So that's where we met. Well, not actually met, but like that's where, I learned of her. And me and my friends, we would have like separate conversations, like while we were talking about our spec scripts, or we were giving like ideas. We would always say like, oh, Pilar's like, she's so good at like pronunciation and she does it so well. She like speaks so clearly, and which is what you want from, when you read a script and before you actually like present it to someone else. But yeah, that's how I met Pilar. Mm-hmm.
And well, I actually I loved your spec script.
Oh, you did?
Queen's Gambit. Yeah, I just thought it was so great because I'm obsessed with the Queen's Gambit. So I love that you did that take on it. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like it was a limited series when after I finished it, the way that it ended.
Right.
It just, and I hope that we do get a season 2. That would be amazing.
Yes.
But yes, it would be really interesting if they do end up going that route.
Yeah, but you gave it an interesting twist. So that was fun to do. It was for me that was a fun project because as actors we're always in the booth. As a voice actor, we're always in the booth auditioning, or as on camera we're studying. But the great part about doing a script like that, and you guys are on the spot because you've written it, but for us, we get to play. We get to take a character we would never do normally, or maybe we've been dreaming about doing, and we just get to play with it because there's no pressure, and so we can kind of explore it in the table read.
That actually leads to something that I really was excited to ask you about, and I was talking to Daniela about this before the show, and something I want to ask you, like, because there's, with voice actors, you get to, I mean, because obviously, Pilar, you've done voice acting and you've done live action acting. With voice acting, it seems like you get to really play because you're not bounded by your like physical appearance, so you can play any role that your voice is able to like produce, if that's the right word that I'm using there. Like do you prefer either or? Do you prefer voice acting over acting in real life? Do you find that one is more playful than the other? Do you have more opportunities and choices to make in one or the other?
It's excuse me. It's basically, it's two different animals, really, because on camera acting you're using your entire body. Voice acting, you also have to use your body, especially if you're doing video games or animation. It's not, a lot of people think that, oh yeah, I'm just acting with my voice. No, you have to bring the entire character into your body and express it that way. Because if I'm, if I'm playing this snooty, let's say I'm playing a snooty businesswoman, so I'll come in and I'll wear a business suit and I'll have my hair up in a certain way, and I'll think about what the character is feeling, thinking, and doing before she came on screen. So if I'm doing on camera work, I have to kind of if I'm doing an audition, I have to make up an entire character because I don't know this character. I've just been given 2 pages, which are called sides. And so I have to come up with a story which will propel me to become this woman who is being this snooty, a businesswoman. Now, if I'm doing a voiceover character, I have less to work with. So I have to create even more. So a lot of the times I'm in the studio, I'm in my booth, and I will put on that jacket, as long as it doesn't make noise. And I will become that character because I have to put it in my body. It has to be a part of me. So it's acting is acting no matter how you slice it, but it's just kind of taking the sensibility that, it's like doing stage versus on camera work, versus, TV versus film. It's all the same thing, but you have to tweak it a little bit differently. And so there's joy and there's also challenges for each medium, but it's not, one is not necessarily better than the other. It's just different.
What do you find most challenging about voice acting?
About making that whole character in your voice, because it's not really about how do I sound. If I really want to talk like, oh, hi, Werner, how are you?
See, this is what I was excited about doing this podcast.
I mean, I can do that, and that's fun. Those are little parlor tricks, or I'm going to kill you. I mean, I can do stuff like that, but I have to bring something from, I have to make her 3-dimensional in order for her to be believable, whatever that character is. So I have to create that backstory. I have to visualize myself as the character, because if I don't believe I'm the character, there's no way anybody else is going to believe me. So I have to really put myself in that, if I'm going to be a witch, or if I'm going to be, a 10-year-old or a young adult, because I've played all those characters. It's about putting myself in that person's shoes, in that character's shoes, and then working from there instead of trying to manipulate the voice first. So I have to get the backstory.
So do you create when you're doing when you get scripts to do you create your own backstory if they don't give you enough backstory of the character? Do you like go into and say, oh, like she got divorced or something like that? Like do you create it in your own head to help you get through reading the script?
Yeah, all the time. Now, if it's a cold read, obviously you don't have much time, but let's say I have 2 auditions for tomorrow. So I have to look at the script, and sometimes they give you a visual. So they give you a visual characterization of what they're looking for. And it's like putting like a face mask on my face and imagining that I am that character, a cartoon character, a video game character. And then like sort of stepping into that mask. And that will affect me as well. And it's also, what was she like before she stepped onto this stage, shall we say? What happened in the moment before to propel her to say these words? So I've always got that in the back of my mind. So, I might just invent like a little, 2 or 3 word thing to help to propel me into that. And I will stand a certain way. If she's a 70-year-old, wizened old woman, I will stand that way. And then I will imagine what might have happened right before, if she's really pissed off or if she's really sad. I have to go into my memory banks and think of something that made me sad Because again, if I don't feel that, there's no way that the person listening is going to feel that on the other end.
So really, it's the actual construction of your voice is really the last part of it
Yes.
of creating the character.
Yes. And people think it's the reverse. You have to kind of
Right.
find the voice. You have to find the character, and then the voice kind of comes along at the same time. So you can experiment, and a lot of the times I'll be talking like this, like there's sometimes I'm just sort of, because I just need to talk, but then
Right.
they're asking for a woman who's kind of a Julia Child kind of person. So then I'll go like this and I'll be talking like this because she's just very, very out there. And then maybe I'll just start trying to see and find my way. So there's all those kinds of little variations that can go with it. And I will discover that. So like right there, I just discovered like 3 different characters, but it wasn't because it's not necessarily that I'm manipulating the voice, but I'm allowing the voice to kind of take me where it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that exploration of creativity that I'm actually doing, instead of saying, oh, let me try to sound like her. I just kind of let the voice take me where it needs to go.
Right.
Do you think that do you think that's what stumps a lot of people who are trying to get into voice acting? They think it's all about just creating a catalog of funny voices or distinct character voices, and then that kind of is all that it entails.
Well, I hear this all the time. On Clubhouse. I don't know if you guys listen to Clubhouse, if you're on Clubhouse.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So people say, oh, yes, so-and-so, my best friend, my father, my mother, my sister, everybody tells me I have a really good voice. And I'm like, there's so many people on the planet who have good voices. And I think that's awesome that you start with that. But you need to train to be able to. So if you're doing a car commercial, Toyota, let's go places. That's completely different from if you're trying to sell, Olive Garden kind of thing. And, so it's all acting. So like, for example, when we are, and people think that voiceover is just kind of like one tone. And when you're at the grocery store, the way you talk to the person who's taking your groceries is one way. Then the way you talk to your mother is a different way. And the way you talk to your teacher is another way. That's all acting. We're acting all day long. So it's really a matter of, how do I best present the character that I'm being given, whether it's a commercial voiceover, narration, animation, because it's just so different. So the one requisite that you really need to be a voiceover actor is to have training. You're learning how to write a spec script. You can't just do it. You have to learn how to do it. That takes training. That takes studying. And so, having gotten a BA in theater when I was in college, that was all fine and great, but I have studied my entire life. I mean, I'm constantly taking classes, and it's not something that ever ends. I mean, Pavarotti the great tenor used to say, that he took an singing class every day of his life. That man, the greatest tenor of our generation, took a singing class. So as an actor, I have to prepare the instrument. As writers, you can write every day. Actors, I will admit, we're a little lazy. So sometimes we don't necessarily, prepare, but we always have to be in preparation, because it's like, we have to be prepared, because it's like we're in the Olympics. And if you're not ready and you get an audition, like this happens all the time. People say, they're running around, and like, I'll see it on Facebook. It's like, oh, I have this audition. I just got this audition for a British accent or a Russian accent. Where can I study this? And it's like, The time to study that was yesterday. Once you get the audition, it's a little too late. So you got to work on that stuff all the time. And so throughout my career, as much as I don't necessarily like to do it, I'm always taking classes because I realize that I have to work on the instrument constantly. You know, when I worked in Colombia, I lived in Bogota in South America because my parents are from there for 9 years, and I worked on telenovelas. And one of the telenovelas I worked on was Yo Soy Betty La Fea, which actually became Ugly Betty here in the States. And actors would ask me, like, why are you taking classes? And I'd be like, well, why wouldn't I be taking classes? They're like, well, yeah, but you're working. And I used to get that question all the time. And I was like, I'm working because I work on my craft. And if I don't work on my craft, I'm going to get rusty. So, that's something that I learned, especially coming here to LA, where, you're basically in the Olympic village of performing, that some of the people who make the most amount of money, some of the most successful voice actors are taking classes. I mean, they're always in training. And I was really surprised because I was like, oh yeah, because I thought I had been working in Miami. I'd been doing a lot of work. And then I realized these people who were doing these promos all day long, they are constantly taking classes. And I was like, ooh, okay. It's fine because I lived in Miami for about 16 years, and that's where I really started the voiceover. I still do on camera work, but it's kind of, I honed my craft in terms of voiceover there. And yeah, I was working 3-4 jobs. I was working at NPR, and I was doing radio hosting, and it was really wonderful. And I'd take a class every so often, and then I get to LA, and they're like, oh no, we're constantly taking classes. I'm like, oh, I'm rusty. I'm a little rusty because I hadn't taken them in a little bit. So I started up again. And it's voice acting. It's something, whether acting per se, you have to train the instrument. People who play the piano, they practice every day. People who write, they write every day. So people who act, I personally, I need to work on my craft every day. That's the only way that it's going to work.
That's I mean, that's very, I mean, you said a lot of great nuggets and pieces of advice there, but I really love just the notion of, like, some people think that, like, oh, I get the audition and then I learn what to do to execute the project, where really it's the reverse. It's like you should have done your training beforehand, which I think that's a lot. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people don't think about when they're getting into this business. They think, well, I'll get the opportunity and then I'll be ready, but it's not like that.
No. And I learned that the hard way because I would get auditions. And this happened to me when I was living in Miami. I would get these auditions and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I've got to, and I would like literally be scurrying around like a gerbil in the wheel. And I'd be like, what am I going to do? I have to learn this type of accent, or I have to, and it's like, you're already too late. You're just too late. So now when I see an audition, and if I'm not right for it, I'm like, okay, fine. Guess what? I'm not prepared. I'm not even going to attempt it. But now I will see something and I'll go, oh, they're asking for a neutral Spanish, almost Mexican. Yep, I know how to do that. And I know how to adjust that because when I speak in Spanish, I have a little bit of a Colombian accent. But now I know how to neutralize it. So when they ask for neutral, I give them the neutral. And I know how to do that. I didn't know how to do that before. So I'd be like, so I would, like, when they would ask me for, like, let's say a Cuban accent, I would call up my Cuban friends and I'd be like, talk to me for like 20 minutes so I can kind of get it. And it's like, no, the time to do that was like last month. So now I know how to, now it's like, I can just put myself in there and go, oh, yep, I know how to do this now. I just have to get back into the swing of it, but I'm practicing on it. You know, I read, I'm probably about 98%. My Spanish is as 98%. My English is 100%. And I work on that because what I do is at night, I read aloud in Spanish. So I'll just read aloud from a book that I'm reading, and it's really fascinating. And so I actually want to do that now because I can understand a little bit of Portuguese, but the accent isn't quite there yet. And I'm thinking, you know what? I can do this too. Do I have any Portuguese jobs lined up? No, but a really good friend of mine who's an audio engineer in Miami basically learned how to speak Portuguese just from listening to other talents, and he would just start speaking it. And he literally speaks fluent Portuguese. And I thought, that's what I can use my time to do instead of, you know, trying to figure out, you know, whatever, trying to strategize or watching another silly movie rerun. Instead of doing that, I can just take 15, 20 minutes and work on my Portuguese. And I also do it because I'm very ADD. So I work on stuff for limited blocks of time. And then that way I can, you know, feel better about it and not like, oh, and it's not as overwhelming, because that's the thing about voice acting. There's a lot in voice acting. There are a lot of different genres. And, you know, you can't be, you know, you can be good at a lot of them, but you can't do them all. But you can work on them in your off time.
You know, I think it's really interesting how now that you say like the things about the accent and everything, it's very interesting how, you know, British actresses or actors do a really good job at portraying American accents. But when it comes like to American accents doing you know, to Americans doing British accents, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like it's always not as good as, you know, as the turnaround. And I don't know if that's like,
You see very few like really good Americans doing British accents. Doesn't happen a lot. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and that's
Like,
because they study it. They
mhm.
the Brits, they know their stuff. They study that stuff like nobody's business. They're very, very disciplined. And there are a few actors. You know, like what's her name? Bridget Jones' Diary, Renee Zellweger. She had a really
Yes.
good, and a lot of English people have said that she has a really good accent. I mean, and you know, you listen to see. So I would say that there are some Americans, but I agree with you. There are more Brits who know how to do authentic American accents than the other way around.
Like Kate Winslet right now in Mayor of
Mare.
Easttown. Yeah. She
Yeah.
does a really good Philadelphia accent. I think that's where the show takes place, but I don't know. I feel like like she does a really good job at doing that, and it's impressive.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. Like, I wonder why. I mean, do Americans just feel like? I mean, is it this whole kind of pretentiousness that Americans have about learning other countries' languages or act like? I mean, Americans are terrible at learning other languages. I'm not saying there aren't Americans who do learn other languages, but I mean, I'm speaking from what I've observed. It seems that we're terrible at doing that. Is that just because we don't fully study, or we don't know how to study? We're not trained how to study those types of things. I don't know. I'm asking you guys because I really don't know.
I mean, I don't want to get into, you know, bashing my fellow countrymen.
We're just asking observational questions.
But I think
Bashing, no bashing.
I think it's back to what I was saying before. It's really about discipline, and it's about being ready before you get the audition, not when you get it. So it's about training. So like, you know, I'll walk around I'll walk around, let's say one morning, and I have a cat, and his name is Paco, and I'll just speak to my cat all day like this, and try to get some in, and maybe change it around a little bit, and listen on YouTube, and just speak all day, maybe a morning, not all day, but I'll speak for a little bit, and then I'll just listen to other Brits in inflections, and then I love, even though I am not very good at it, but now I'm sounding like, I don't know, Count Chocula. I feel like there's something about the Russian accent. I did an audiobook where I played, one of the characters was a Russian dance instructor. And I just had so much fun playing a male, because he would speak very low. And so I would listen to my Russian tapes. And there is something from a movie. It's called An American Tale. In America, there are no kids, and the streets are paved with cheese. And so I would just listen to that all day long, and because I just love that old thing. So it's it's really about preparing. Somebody like Kate Winslet obviously has a coach, but these are people who are. This is what they do. So they make it their business to be constantly training. I don't know if you've had a chance to see Genius Aretha. It's on Hulu, and it's with Cynthia Erivo. And they just showed, it's part of a National Geographic series. And so they're like, the first two seasons are, I think, Einstein and Picasso. And then the third season is Aretha Franklin. And watching this woman who is English completely get Aretha Franklin's mannerisms and the way she speaks down, and listen to her singing is like, I mean, I was just like sitting there like with my mouth open, because it was at a drive-in last week, and it was so spectacular because I'd never been to a drive-in, never, because I grew up in New York. So I had no basis of comparison, and so we just watched this amazing performance. And it's a series. It's like, I think it's like 7 or 8 episodes. And then she spoke for a little bit with Leslie Odom Jr. And she talked about the inflections, studying Aretha Franklin's voice. And I was like, oh, wow, this woman really, really worked and lived and breathed this character. So when you get somebody like an Anthony Hopkins, who has said, they ask him, how many times do you read a script? He's like, oh, no, between 80 and 100 times. And you're like, what? But that's the level that you have to go to embody a character. And so as a voice actor, when you get a script, you have to give it your all, because you've only, you're up against sometimes 500 other voices. So you have to give it a full life. Yeah, but so it really takes a level of dedication to be able, because you've only got one shot when you're a voice actor, and you don't have the advantage of being on camera. It's just your voice. So how much of a life can you put into that voice? Whether it's a Honda Accord commercial, or a political commercial, or it's a narration, or it's medical narration. We're always acting, even if we're just reading script. So it's like, how can the actor infuse the script that they're given and take it from a 2-dimensional to a 3-dimensional, to take the words off the page and, breathe life into them.
We were talking about how a person gets ready for the opportunity, how a voiceover, or just an actor in general, gets ready for the opportunity to study before the opportunity comes their way, which I think is such an important thing to focus on. For me, I guess where I want to lead from here is like, because I think for me, and I'm not even an actor, but for me, the most kind of weird and difficult and stressful and kind of mysterious part of acting seems to be auditioning, because I mean, I don't know how you feel about this. I feel like auditioning is so weird. It's such a weird thing. Like, because I've auditioned actors, and even from the other side, it feels weird because it's like there's so many weird reasons why you choose a performance or an actor over another, and it's never like everyone saw it. It's like, no, there's always good talent, and it's always weird how one beats out the other, if you would even say it like that. I mean, I don't know. Like, how do you approach auditioning? How do you see auditioning from your perspective?
So auditioning is probably the most non-realistic form of looking at somebody's talent. It's
Right.
just so artificial.
That's
It's
why
it's
it's so weird.
it's so incredibly artificial. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Um and on camera is not really very much different from voiceover. Now, since of course we've been brought into a COVID situation, and that's not going to change anytime soon. People have now, people are auditioning on camera, of course, now. Um, and but they're doing it, either from Zoom if they get a call back, or they do self tapes. Here, voiceover, we were really lucky because we just, whoever had a booth basically just sent their MP3 in, to audition, and that's not going to change. I mean, I think that definitely going to a studio to audition is going to not really be the norm anymore. And it was kind of going that way. I mean, I did very few auditions when I first arrived. It's going to be almost 2 years. I did get, like, I would go to a casting director's office once in a very long while, but the majority were, I just record from my booth and then send it off. And now it's just, that's going to be for a while.
Do you like that? Do you like not having to go somewhere? Because it feels like it. I mean, that while it is convenient and it is a little less stressful because you don't have to be in front of people while you're doing it. Do you think the pressure makes your performance better?
What it is that you, again, what we were saying before, you have to create your environment, whether you're going to an audition or whether you are inside the booth the way I am right now. If I'm in a video game and I am a slayer, I'm a warrior, and so I have to, and this is a podcast, but if I'm going to slay somebody and I'm going to say it with my voice, I'm going to put something in my hand. So right now it's a pencil, and if I'm going to kill somebody with that, I'm going to go, "Ah! Ah!" And I'm going to literally that's going to be my effort, because I have to use myself. And so auditioning is something that I have to concoct out of thin air, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving these 2 pages, and I have to imagine this whole world. If I'm doing a really sexy oil of Olay, that's how they talk on their commercials. Oil of Olay. So I have to create an environment where I'm going to feel like that character. And I'll do a few takes, and then I'll send it off. And here's the thing, I will do my best, but the agents can only send, like, let's say, their best 5. So I don't even know if my audition got sent to the client. A lot of the times it will get sent. But if you've got, if they're saying, here, you can only give us your best 5. So I have to do my best each time, regardless. Auditioning is, on the part of the casting directors on the other side, is a completely subjective thing. And casting directors and agents alike have said this. They don't know what the client is going to find nice or attractive. Let's say in a they see an on-camera audition, this really good actress, but they don't like the color of their hair. Reminds them of their ex-wife.
Mm,
That's how
right.
subjective it becomes. A couple of years ago, I had a callback for a I had a callback. It was for Miami Film Festival. It was for like this little sort of promo, and I was really excited because it was a callback, and they were basically going to select from this. There wasn't going to be an additional callback. This was it, and the clients were there, and I arrived, and they were really happy to see me, and they were like, "We love your voice." And then all of a sudden, one of the people, one of the whatever it was, the creative director, I don't even think it was the creative director because it wasn't. It was somebody auxiliary, said, "Oh, I was carrying this really cute little lunchbox. Um, there's this artist called Brito, Romero Brito, and he does these very colorful pieces, and he's merchandised himself a lot. And I was carrying this really cute little lunchbox, and he said, 'You have a Brito lunchbox.'" And this man starts ranting and raving. It's like, "I hate Brito. I can't believe it. He's all over the place. He's in the airport. He's everywhere. I can't stand it. Oh my God, you have a..." And I was like, oh my God, step away slowly. I was like, what did I do? And again, I don't
So
know.
you just mentioned this famous.
I didn't mention it. I just had this, this was the lunchbox was my purse. I just put my purse down. I'd put my purse down. I hadn't said a word. And then all of a sudden, like after the audition, this one of the clients said that. And I mean, that's literally what we talked about. We didn't even talk about my performance because they were like, "Oh yeah, it was really good." But then they went off on this thing. And again, I don't know why I wasn't selected, but it could have been something as ridiculous and inconsequential as this man hated Brito. So therefore he hated me. I love Brito. I think he's a phenomenal artist. So that's just, it is what it is. But this is, you don't know. And here's the problem with auditioning. Actors think that when they don't get a role, they take it personally because we're human. I mean, I've done it plenty. And you just can't. So when I first arrived, there were, I went to this class, a SAG-AFTRA Foundation was teaching a class, and this teacher said, he envisioned this scenario. He said, okay, you get the sides from your agent, and you read the sides, and this is what he says. He says, you're probably not getting the job. And we're like, oh my God, this is really depressing. All of us kind of breathe this sort of sigh in the class. So then the guy goes on and he says, okay, you get to the casting office, and there are all these people, and you slay the audition. You're like, you feel so good. You're on a high. You're like, I really studied. I did all my stuff. Then the guy says, you're probably not getting the audition. A couple days later, your agent calls and says, you have a callback. And you're like, okay, great. I'm gonna study the scene again. I'm gonna do it even better. I'm gonna wear the exact same thing I wore before, because that's what you're supposed to do, so they remember you. And then you go in and you go to the casting office. There are less people there, and you do it, and you think, oh my God, I did it really well. And the guy says, you're probably not getting the part. Then your agent calls you a couple days later and says, you're on first refusal. So it's like,
what does that mean?
First refusal means they have the right to, they can basically book you they're asking you to hold that day for them. So like hold the day, but they have the right to refuse to, I think that's what it means. It's basically saying, we want to hold you for that spot. We're holding you for that day. Don't do anything on that day. And we will call you and let you know if you've been released from that day.
Got it.
Okay.
Cool.
That's a term that they used to use in Miami. I don't know how often they use it here, but it means that. It's basically, we own you for that day. We haven't booked you yet, but you're very close. I think now they say we ping you. And so this guy said it again. By then we were all laughing. We were just like, okay, this guy. And so what he did was he was taking the sting away, because when you put all your eggs in one basket and go, like, I mean, it's a very old musical, but from a chorus line, there was this one song that would say, God, I hope I get it. I hope I get it. And
Mhm.
it's like, if you go in with that energy, they're going to smell it on you immediately. So it's like, you're here,
The needy energy.
the neediness, I need a job. But
Right.
it's more like, okay, guess what? I'm probably not going to get this job because there are 500 other people. So guess what? I'm going to just enjoy myself. I'm going to enjoy the ride. I'm going to take a ride with this character. I'm going to do my best. And I got to play this character for that little bit. I got to be this person. So that's when I realized that that's what the energy that I had to come in with, instead of going, oh my God, this would be like so great. You know, actors do this, and we've all done this. We get an audition, and it turns out it's like, have your passport ready. I would get that all the time. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm going somewhere. And I could see myself on the plane. I hadn't done the audition. I hadn't even read the sides yet, but my mind was already going there instead of concentrating on the task at hand.
Mhm.
And then slowly I had to change that and go, guess what? No expectations. I'm going to study the heck out of the sides. I'm going to invent this character. I'm going to make her 3-dimensional. I'm going to give her, a whole bunch of things to feel and do in this 2-minute scene that I have. And I'm going to go and do it. And I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it. And that's it. And drop it. As soon as I leave the audition, I'm done. It's over. I can let go and let it go. And if it's meant to come back, it does. And if it's not, it wasn't yours to begin with. Because you just never know why you get picked or why you don't get picked. There's no logic to it.
There is none. I've casted a few of my a short film of mine, and I've been on the other side. I auditioned for like plays in high school, but that doesn't even count in my opinion. But I've done it. I've been on the other side of it, like auditioning actors. And here's the thing: speaking from like a director's point of view, sometimes even when you've written the character and you know everything about the character, sometimes even then you still don't know like what you're looking from an actor. Like you're looking to be surprised, I think is the big thing. Like I hear it's been said, and I think it's very true. Every time an actor comes into the room, you're hoping from a casting perspective that they're going to be the answer to your prayers. You don't know before they speak or before they do the performance whether they're going to be, but I'm always rooting for whoever actor comes in the room.
Right.
I want them to blow me away, but I don't always know what blowing away is. Like you don't know, and sometimes it is an appearance thing, especially with live action. Sometimes it's like that person was a great actor, but that other actor made me feel like that person felt like the character when I looked at them, and they also gave a good performance. So I'm gravitating towards that. It makes no sense. Like there is no like logical rationale
But
for it.
you just hit on that's the magic ingredient. Because when a director feels it, because again, the director, yeah, you may have written it, but for what you're telling me is it's the reverse of what we go through. The director desperately wants to cast the character, but he doesn't know what he's looking for until he sees it and he feels it. Then he goes,
Right.
oh, that's it. That's
Right.
it. That's what I want. And that's the thing. We can only, as actors, do what we feel we can interpret and how we feel the character. So that's why it always has to be true for each person who does that audition,
Mhm.
because you just don't know how it's going to hit the person on the other side. And it doesn't really have anything to do with their talent. It's like,
No.
oh, but it's like what you just said, like I feel it. It just sat, and it drops into you, and you go, oh yeah, that's it. That's it. That's her. That's her. That's her.
Right. You know it in an instant. And
Yep.
again, I can't write down like reasons like, oh, this logically is why. It's just like, oh, it's always intangible feeling when you know it's the right individual to
And
do it.
it's not words. That's the
No.
whole thing about it. It's not about words and it's not about logic. You can't really describe it. You just know in your gut,
Yeah.
this is it.
It's yes.
That's the
Exactly.
person. Yeah.
Yeah. Which it I don't know if that really helps actors because it's just a conundrum for both sides involved because it's like
It is.
it's never personal
No,
when you say no to an actor.
we take it personally because it's our instrument. It's not like, oh, you
Right.
play the piano badly. It's or you play the piano well. It's more like, oh, this is who you are. But the actors who've been doing it long enough understand that all they can do is present that idea. I have an anecdote that I just remembered
Oh,
in
please.
terms of studying, and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily auditioning, but this is the level that you have to get to, because this is what, one of the things that I'm sure you all have heard is that, copy the greats.
Mhm.
So, you go to the, you go and you look at Casablanca, and you go and you look at Humphrey Bogart, and, and then you find out that Humphrey Bogart, that movie was basically a big part of that movie was written as it was being shot. So he would get stuff the night before, and then he would just go and record. They would film it, which is like amazing because his character was so, three-dimensional. Because he was prepared. He was prepared. So there's an anecdote that I read years ago with Scent of a Woman. It was Chris O'Donnell's first film, I think. And it was one of his first films. And it was with Al Pacino. So, and they had adjoining dressing rooms in this one particular shooting location. And so Chris O'Donnell heard Al Pacino studying, like saying the lines over and over for this one scene. And so he knocked on his door, he opened the curtain, whatever. He said, Al, that scene isn't until a few days from now. We're doing this scene. And Al said, oh no, I already blocked and figured out that scene for today. I'm working a scene a few days from now. Because he already had his scene prepared for shooting. He was, absolutely concentrated on making sure he knew what was going to be happening in a few days. And that's the level of work that you have to do. And I've come to the conclusion that these great actors, these actors who, they win awards. I was saying that Anthony Hopkins reads a script 80 to 100 times when he's in a film. And, that's the level that they go to. If that's what they do, I need to be studying. I need to be creating a whole world for my 2-page sides. I need to be so well prepared that I'm basically standing in front of them saying, I am the perfect person for this part. So whoever sees that on the other side is going to go, like what we were talking about before, right before we were talking, we were talking with Werner, that the person on the other side, the casting director, has a feeling that they're right for that that actor is the one, and they don't know how to describe it, but they just know it when they walk in the room and they read. We have to be that prepared so they can go, oh man, she's not right for this part, but I could use her for something else. I'm going to keep her in my memory bank because she's that good.
That's an important thing to keep in mind. Just because a director or a casting director didn't pick you for one thing doesn't mean that we don't recognize great talent when we see it, even if it wasn't right for that moment in time.
Exactly. And that's what's so important, is I have to do my best regardless, because there are going to be a couple of eyes on this. And they, I mean, I've been through Zoom, of course, through this past year, I've been listening to all this stuff that, casting directors and agents and whatever will look at the first 6 seconds. Sometimes it's less. And if they're not engaged in the first 6 seconds, next, they just press and they go on to the next one. And that's the odds because we are in this Olympic village of performing, which is, Los Angeles. So, my job as an actor is to have them not press next or pause and go, oh, wait a minute, there's something interesting about her. So I have to give a good performance on my end since I don't know who's going to be seeing it. And not necessarily to please anyone, but to really, did I do the best that I could possibly? Did I really give a performance where that character makes them think about that role in a different way? So, I will block a scene, I don't know, as many times as possible. And I'll come up with different ideas and I'll come up with different ways of doing it because I want them to sit there and go, oh, okay, that's interesting. That makes me pause. So that's the way I look at auditioning. It's not about a means to an end. Like, God, I hope I get it. It's more, how can I do the best performance so I can stand tall and go, yep, I gave this my all.
To leave something memorable in
Yep.
the room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely for me, like, because I minored in acting in Columbia, and definitely for me, like, I get a lot of stage fright when it comes to doing auditions, but I feel like that's something that you have to get used to. Like, you have to keep practicing to, like, push it down, or, like, or use the fear to your advantage of, wanting to get this certain role for a movie or for a TV show. But yeah, I think whenever I even, like, think about going into into an audition, or, like, I imagine it's a little scary, I feel like, because you're performing in front of other people. But if it was for a camera and then I send in the video, then I feel like I would be fine and I would be totally perfect. But yeah, I don't know how the audition scene is here. I don't know if you have, like, the option to do both, of either in person or video, but I feel like it's important to experience both.
Well, COVID changed all that.
Yeah.
So, the industry was paralyzed for a while. And then, people started doing on camera. I don't know how much in person is being done because a lot of these casting offices and agencies are just not open. They're doing everything from home. I
Mhm.
don't see that changing anytime soon, but I'm not as familiar with that part of the industry. I know voiceover, completely doing everything remote, and I was just given the chance. I was just there at the beginning of the pandemic. They were saying, well, you can come in, and people weren't really sure of the regulations. And so, and then my agent, I said, I don't feel comfortable going into the studio. And then it just became a thing where you didn't go into your studio. So luckily I set this up when I arrived. I had somebody come in and make this sound. It's not soundproof because no studio is soundproof unless you're, got a room within a room, but it's sound treated. And so, nothing like literally noise floor is minus 70 dBs, negative 7 dBs, which is super low. So I made sure that, my mic placement and everything, worked that way. In the voiceover world, though, they're not, that's not really going to change anytime soon. And I know that on camera, people are still sending all their self tapes because people haven't gotten back to their offices yet. That's going to come. I don't know if that's going to happen when LA opens. I don't know if people will go back. I think it's, going to be different. But I will tell you, Daniela, you just reminded me that, and again, I don't know if this is real. It might be urban legend, but they say that Laurence Olivier, the great British actor, used to throw up before every performance on stage. So they had a bucket for him. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I wasn't there. Stage fright is a very real thing. And, being on set, it can be, can be daunting, but I think that you just hit on something that's very true, is being able to use that. I had a friend of mine who's a working actor in Atlanta who used to say, if I'm not scared, then I'm not challenged. If I feel fear, I realize I need to do that role, which I thought was really interesting. I think about that. Fear is a process it's a process of performing. I think I've only directed twice in my life. And both times, right before the performance, I just wanted to leave. I was like, please get me a plane ticket out of the country, because I do not want to sit in the audience. And I wasn't even in the performance. I was just directing it. And then I realized, oh, this is what directors go through. They go through it on another level. It's really interesting because they're in charge of it. They have the reins, the task of having put something together. So if it's a flop, they're gonna point the finger at the director. And they're responsible. So there's fear everywhere, at every option, at every stage in the world of performing whatever it is you do. And to me, it's about saying, okay, yeah, guess what? I'm in fear. I'm gonna feel the fear, and I'm just gonna get through this, and I'm just gonna do it. Yeah.
It's just acknowledgement of the fear that it exists.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really interesting. But I also wanted to ask you, when you do your different voices, like the snooty boss woman that you said, or businesswoman, or like the Toyota commercial, do you have to work it, or does it put any strain on your voice? Do you have to practice reaching different pitches when you're acting? Because I know that could put a lot of strain on the throat muscle.
So I always warm up before I walk into the booth. I do some exercises outside, because that's really important, and I do some stretching just to have the body loose. The only genre where you're actually taxing the voice is video games.
Okay.
Because you have to do efforts, which is and you have to shout, and you have to be careful, because you can ruin your voice. You can ruin your voice if you don't know how to do it properly. So I'm always very aware of that. And something that's just a given is that you always drink a ton of water. That's super important. And also, when you start feeling something, telling the engineer, hey, I'm not really comfortable. Can we do it another way? I'm starting to feel it, because you don't want to ruin your voice like that. Animation, there's not as much screaming or yelling. And so it really becomes all about placement, rather than, instead of throwing the voice. But video games is where you just have to be very careful with that.
That's interesting. What video games have you done? Or
it's funny, because there's one that I've done. There's two that I've done, and one, even though it's out, I'm not allowed to talk about it until
is it a big one? Like, is it like, oh, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah. And
is it like I don't know how I can try to get this out without.
Don't guess. Don't guess. It's not. I play a bunch of characters, but the 2 or 3 characters, and they're not the main characters. They're supporting roles, but I'm not really sure because they sent us recently, they sent us you sign, and this is the other thing about this, happens a lot. You sign NDAs when you audition. You don't sign the NDAs when you get the role. You because I don't know, whatever, actors unfortunately tend to be not as prudent. And, when I'm auditioning for something, I have to be aware that this is not my material. I didn't write it. So I have no business sharing it on social media. But actors do, and they go, oh, I just got a call back for War of the Worlds, whatever. And I'm like so excited. And they'll put their audition up on their Instagram page or on their, and it's like, what are you doing? You have to respect other people's work. So I always tend to err on the side of caution, and they did send us something a couple of weeks ago. So it's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I remember I did this, I had this very, very small day player part on this series called Bloodline. I didn't have a role with this guy. His Leo Butts, Norton Leo Butts, I think his name is.
Norman. That's a funny name.
Norbert.
I'm sorry.
Norbert
Okay.
Leo Butts. Norbert Leo. He's a very, very well-known theater, and he was playing one of the brothers on Bloodline.
Got it.
Phenomenal actor, amazing. BUTZ. And
BUTZ, okay.
BUTZ. And
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make fun of this person.
It's okay.
I hope he doesn't see that.
No, he's an amazingly talented actor. He's just phenomenal, and he's really nice. And so we were sitting there waiting, and so we just talked about everything. And then at the end, I said, "Hey, can I take a picture with you?" And he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so I took a picture. We shot in December. This is a little while ago. We shot in December, but it didn't come on the air until like March or April. And so somebody said, "Hey, is that you in the first episode?" And I was like, because it's like in the dark, you can't really see me. And I'd totally forgotten, because it's like when people say to me, "Don't do anything, can you keep a secret?" My problem is I forget. So then somebody will come, you say, "Don't say anything, whatever." And then so they'll come back to me and they'll say, "Do you remember what I said to you 6 months ago?" And I'm like, "No, I don't remember, because you told me not to say anything. So I forgot." So this is the same situation. And so they were like, "Yes, you're on Bloodline. Oh my gosh." And I thought, oh, okay, now that I'm on the air, now I can post this picture.
Yeah.
Which is
Right.
how you're supposed to do it. And so, but unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't get respected. And I'm very aware of that. You have to, it's not my material to share. So but it'll come out eventually.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited to know what game it is.
Me too.
I'm not a gamer myself, really, but like my brother is, and I know a lot of people who are huge gamers. So
It's a very fascinating world.
It is.
I don't understand it, but it's very fascinating.
It's very cool. It's really cool to see someone who's really passionate about it play a game. Like, cause they'll get like emotionally into it, like especially like in like those like first person view like fighter games.
Like Twitch. You've been on Twitch, right?
I've been on Twitch, yes.
So like watching them get so into like, do I buy a gold coin here? Do I bring my spear out? I mean, they're so into it. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it's taken on a new life of its own, and I do wonder where the role of video games and cinema, as it I guess converges, what that will be like, because video games are getting more and more cinematic, just as time goes by. I don't know, and people don't laugh at the idea of taking video games seriously anymore. I mean,
and like. Yeah, because there's this thing called mocap, performance capture,
right.
where you've got all these dots on you, and there's a.
Is that what you did for this video game?
No.
Oh yeah.
No. That's a whole other bag of treats to deal with,
Sure.
because they like if oh God, what's his name? Benedict Cumberbatch. He did this. There's this YouTube video of him like playing this lizard.
Yeah, the dragon for the Hobbit, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And watching him, and you're like, it's so mesmerizing because it's a full performance. It's a full performance, except you never see his face, of course, because he's actually the lizard.
Mhm.
But that's very intense, and it's just interesting that you say that, because I think, well, I mean, they did do that in a way with what was the David Cameron film?
Avatar.
Avatar. Kind of, that was sort of, but that was very, I think they've definitely the technology has really flown past that since then. So it's it's a lot more realistic in terms of who knows, video games and cinema is an interesting marriage, which I think will.
And also virtual reality in cinema.
Yeah, and
What
that's
is
right
that?
there. Yeah.
That's not that far. I mean, you can now go, because I mean, my girlfriend has like an Oculus, and you can watch Netflix on your Oculus, and you're in like a virtual reality living room, so you can view movies and television in a virtual reality simulation. So we're already there. That's already a thing.
You've used it though, right?
I
Obviously.
have used it. Yes.
Doesn't it gives me a little bit of a headache.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, it is very cool. I mean, I love playing games on it. I love like doing. I mean, I think it's really really cool. I do prefer just watching a movie on a TV or like a theater. Like I do, like it does. I've never actually sat down and watched a full movie using it, because I don't like it that much.
Oh, okay, yeah,
It's just
exactly.
weird.
Yeah.
But I know there is definitely people who do like it, and there's, I mean, I just think it's important to, because we view film and television in the context of now, obviously, and we have to be thinking about what's going on right now. But it's always cool to have one hand in the present and then one hand in the future, and I feel like just keeping an eye, and because it'll only make cinema and storytelling even more versatile and interesting, incorporating these new elements.
Absolutely. And there's a big talk about that in I mean, actors say, oh, are we going to be replaced and by AI and this and that, and obviously there are things that are being done, but there is nothing like having a voice to be able to act. I mean, as technology improves and gets more sophisticated, there'll be other ways that voice actors can use their voice. That's kind of the way I see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't imagine a future. Well, because I think people are always fearful, like, oh my gosh, there's been someone was telling me, like, when the lockdowns happened, like, oh, well, cinema, and will that become obsolete? Will people stop caring about that because we don't go to the movie theaters anymore? People don't, it's hard, and people just prefer sitting at home watching stuff on their phones, and it's, we lose that connection. But I don't know. I feel like the industry of storytelling and of humans creating stories, that is something that has existed within the human zeitgeist since we evolved from like primates.
Yeah.
Like, that's not like, people are not just gonna stop wanting stories. Stories are how we make sense of the world, like make sense of our lives.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have to fear. I think the technology will change, and it always has changed, and that's just a part of it. Humans have this desire to evolve and have new gadgets and new things, but it doesn't take away the broad scope of what we're doing here. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I mean, we started out with paintings, telling stories with paintings in caves. So
right. And people don't do that anymore, but we're still okay.
we still right. We still do paintings. I mean, we still tell stories through painting.
We know, you're right. You are right. We definitely still do, but but we've also added other things.
Exactly.
We keep adding other things because we're interested in how do we go about storytelling in this way. Like, oh, this is a cool piece of technology. Maybe we can add art to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's just cool. That's just cool to think about, I think.
Yeah, I agree. What the next vista is, how far we can take this.
Right.
Yeah. Telling
I also-
stories. And this is what you guys do, is tell stories.
I mean, it would definitely be interesting to see, if they ever do create an AI that sticks with the profession of acting or something like that, that it would be, I don't know if an AI could or would be able to bring what actors actually like human emotion, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if AIs aren't programmed to feel anything like that. So
Well,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
We don't. From my understanding, it's very limited. We don't have AI that is nearly as sophisticated
Okay.
as that. I mean, that's the thing. You're talking about creating emotion, and emotion is such an esoteric thing. Like, how do you program emotion? And you see that constantly in sci-fi movies. Like,
I mean,
like you can make an android that looks like a person, but
Mhm.
can they really emote like a person?
yeah. I mean, it's so funny that you're saying this because I have 2 auditions that are due tomorrow, which discuss exactly that. I mean, literally exactly
Yeah.
that. So those stories are being explored for sure. But somebody's voicing them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I just don't. I don't know. Again, what the future holds, I have no idea. I'm not a well, what do you call that? An oracle, in that sense. But it's just an interesting thing to think about because I feel like, I don't know, we humans have now become so we've become more intelligent than we've ever been in our history, and now
Yep.
we've been able to track how our progression has been since the beginning, and now it's almost like we're so aware of everything that we've done. What's next? We can't even fathom about what comes next. Like what is next for art, for technology, for human society in general, and this pandemic. Now even more questions are raised.
Yeah, it's brought us back. Yeah, basically taking us into the dark ages for a little bit.
Oh, well, just like we just have to reassess like what society is, and like how are we going to where do we go from here? Because we've realized that we don't have to go into places, like we don't have to work a 9 to 5 at a place to be effective. People can work from home. That changes the game tremendously. And I know it's obviously different from our profession because it's so collaborative, and
Right.
and creatives feed off of that energy of having people around. So we want to work in groups. So it's just so many questions. So many questions are raised, so few are answered. That's just how I feel. That's what 2020 and 2021 have been for me. It's just like more questions, fewer answers.
Yep. But
Yeah.
the future is exciting.
Pilar, before you go,
Sure.
Danielle and I always ask this question of all of our guests before they leave. And that is, what is your advice to aspiring industry professionals who want to what is the advice that you would give to someone that you wish someone gave you when you started getting into acting and going to getting into this industry?
So there's a joke. I'm a New Yorker because I was born and bred in Manhattan. and there's a you say, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. That, I would say, is probably the one thing, because here's the thing about any kind of performance, any genre of performing that you do. We always start out bad. I mean, maybe Meryl Streep came out of the womb, but even if you look at her early performances, you know, she wasn't perfect, and she, you know, completely admits to that. But she has worked on her craft her entire life. And speaking from a perspective of having even been on television and not practiced the craft, I can see where my holes were looking back. So I've made that like my mission. I'm obsessed with practicing and not necessarily doing the same thing over and over again, but how can I do this differently? You know, I'm learning again to play the piano because I'm a singer, and I love to sing, but you know, I got bored with always having to ask somebody to play the piano for me. So I was like, well, let me just accompany myself. And so I did that, and I learned to just play a couple chords. And I did that for a while. I used to volunteer at the VA hospital in Miami, and I would have a ball doing that. And then in the midst of moving and everything, I stopped doing that. And a friend of mine lent me her keyboard. And I was like, oh, guess what? I've got to start doing that again, because it brings me joy. Even if it may not be perfect and the chords aren't perfect, I like being able to accompany myself and sing. And that's something that I don't normally do. Normally I'm here in the studio, in my booth, or I'm starting to audition on camera. But that's tweaking the craft and finding different ways. You know, maybe I'll be outside and I'll post a little video, and I'll accompany myself doing a little a cappella thing, where it's 3 voices, because now they have these apps where you can basically sing, you know, one song on top of the other, one part on top of the other. So you're actually in harmony with yourself. It's hysterical. This friend of mine told me about it, and it's like, oh, I can do that. Why not? You know, and it's, I would say, practice, 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 and be curious. I mean, you hear that all the time, but I didn't really understand that until I realized, how can I apply that to myself? Find different ways, you know, learn a new language, read a book that you normally wouldn't read, you know, observe people from a distance. How do they walk? How do they talk? Do they limp? What are their shoes like? How do they stand? What are they wearing? Because those are all things that I can incorporate into a character. Because I'm always thinking, how can I use that? You know, so, you know, in America, there are no kids and the streets are paved with cheese. How am I going to use that? How? You know, or there was a character on, it was Maya Rudolph, and she would say, I want to get out of here, on SNL. And I am in love with all things Italian. So the other day I had an Italian accent audition. I didn't really have it, because there were some other ones that I could do, because I can do French accent, I can do Spanish accent, but I thought, let me just give it a whirl. And I had so much fun talking like this, because I love Italian things and they talk like this. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, okay, this is so much fun. I can work on this. So that's what I would say. Be curious and practice, practice, practice. And enjoy the auditioning part of it. Enjoy the being able to give a script or a spec and give it your all and hand it in and go, yes, that's done. I've done my work, handing it in, and then release it. Let it go. If it's meant to come back to you, it does, because it always does. The work always finds you. It always finds you. Even if you get rejected 20,000 times, the work always finds you. And if it wasn't meant for you, there's no point in trying to chase it, and just enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Me encanta tu nombre, by the way, Daniela.
Muchas
me encanta.
gracias. A mí también me encanta tu nombre, Pilar. Me gusta mucho. Me gusta mucho el nombre Pilar.
Muchas gracias.
Mm-hmm.
It was really a pleasure
Yes.
to be here. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for inviting me on the podcast.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Well, guys, that about wraps it up for episode 31 of the Courier 13 podcast. Pilar, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao, va bene.